Welcome to ACF Chefs Forum. It's critical for culinarians to connect, to share, and to offer inspiration and mentorship to affect change, which is exactly why we're excited to have experts here with information just for you, the leaders and future leaders of the food service industry. I'm Jackie Pressinger, American Culinary Federation's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar and appreciate you all tuning in today as we focus on women in food service leadership. I hope you're ready to be inspired and to cover some topics and statistics that may be eye-opening. During this presentation, we'll be taking questions for the chefs live during the webinar as we are able. Please be sure to use the chat function to collaborate with other chefs and culinary students who are tuning in, and the Q&A function to pose questions directly to today's chefs. Okay, so we know that we have our chefs tuning in as well from across the country, and also our guests from the World Association of Chef Societies today. So let's get the conversation going in the chat. Please let us know where you're tuning in from today. And at this time, I'd like to welcome American Culinary Federation's National President, Chef Kimberly Brown, to say a few words of welcome for today's presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Happy International Women's Day. As the first woman ever elected to serve as president of the largest association of chefs, professional chefs in North America, I am honored to be representing the ACF on this important day and throughout Women's History Month in March, in recognition of the many contributions ACF members and other women chefs have made to the industry and greater good. Aside from showcasing their craft and passion for food and culinary arts, women have long been advocates for healthy food, nutrition, sustainability, a better food system, and food security for all, as well as social justice and equality and inclusion in the workforce. Now, more than ever, during these challenging times, women have across all segments and positions in the food service industry are rising up to push these agendas forward. But the facts remain that there is still much disparity. Only 25% of all chefs are women. So we know that this is a very important topic, and we will not be able to cover everything that needs to be said in this time, but we still will prevail. So at this time, I'd like to start introducing my panel. And my moderator for the day, Chef Kathleen Fossenberg, works as the Vice President of Academic Affairs for the Augusta Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Chef has worked as an educator and culinary school leader for over 20 years, influencing the education of thousands of students in that time. Kathleen holds a master's degree in educational leadership and has earned both the Certified Executive Chef, CEC, and Certified Executive Educator, CCE, certifications from the ACF, and has been recognized as a past ACF Southeast Region Educator of the Year, and serves on the board of directors of her local ACF chapter in Augusta, Georgia. Chef Ruth Gresser is the chef owner of Pizza Paradiso, which has 4 locations in the DC area. Chef is a graduate of Madeleine Cayman's Classical and Modern French Cooking School. After many years in the kitchen, Chef Gresser turned her attention to pizza, opening her Pizzeria Paradiso, the first Neapolitan-style pizza restaurant in the DC area. So Chef Gresser has been instrumental to the opening of 7 popular restaurants in Washington. Chef sits on the Women's Leadership Programs Advisory Board of the James Beard Foundation, is a past president of Women Chefs and Restaurateurs, is a member of the Dames Escoffier, and serves on the board of the Restaurant Association of Washington. Chef Gresser has earned many accolades during including the 2019 and 2020, when Chef was named as semifinalist in the James Beard Awards in the category of Outstanding Restaurateurs. And we also have Chef Ava Arios, Executive Chef of Birdhouse Hospitality and has been in the culinary business for over 15 years. Chef's career started at Sea Island Resort before moving to Houston Country Club, where she completed her ACF apprenticeship under a master chef before moving on to Austin Country Club. Chef is known for competing in numerous culinary competitions and has also served on several boards and chair roles in her local ACF chapters and has earned her ACF CEC Certified Executive Chef designation. Chef is an ACF Certified Evaluator and a member of the National ACFEF Apprenticeship Program Committee, and currently part of the Katy ISD Miller Career Center Advisory Board member. Chef Tia McDonald Rayford, chef, owner, and co-owner of Strong Roots 9. Chef is a graduate of the CIA, Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And as a professional chef, Tia has cooked in some of the country's top kitchens, including New York City's Oceana and Gramercy Tavern, working under Philadelphia chef Mark. She worked as the campus executive chef at the University of Pennsylvania, the senior executive chef at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, China, developmental chef for Airmark K-12, and director of culinary operations for the Vitri Foundation for Children. She currently serves as director of culinary programs to K-12 by Elior, and then the owner of Zao Teas, a premium iced tea beverage line. Chef now splits her time between Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and with her husband, Chef Matthew, in Brunswick, Georgia, at Gilead Farms. Finally, today's moderator, Chef Zoe Adjonyoh, is the Director of Women's Leadership Programs at James Beard Foundation, as well as an acclaimed writer and cook from England. Chef became a leading voice for Ghana cuisine in London, and her pop-up restaurant and supper club started making waves in the food scene, both in London and Berlin, garnering a huge amount of press. Chef is passionate about driving equality and change in the food service industry and working tirelessly to create programming and initiatives to create pathways for women in culinary business. We are grateful to have you all join us today. Chef Zoe, at this time, I'll pass the presentation over to you.
I'm unmuting myself. Thank you so much for that introduction, Chef. What an honor and a pleasure it is to be here with you all today and to moderate this panel with such a fantastic bevy of women leaders in the industry. Happy International Women's Day, month, life to you all and to everybody who's viewing and listening. So I wanted to kick this off, but I don't do this every day. But I happened this morning over breakfast to be leafing through a couple of McKinsey reports, not even in preparation for this. Should have been, but here you go, it's useful. So, and you know, there's the same narrative, isn't there? Like basically, let's set some historical context first. You know, women got the vote 100 years ago. 50 or so years later, we were given access to finance, apparently. And yet, every McKinsey report for the last few years kind of says the same thing, right? It says women are making headway, women are the most educated. Every year we seem to be the most educated, getting the most qualifications, and add Black women on top of that specifically. And the more qualified and the more minority we are, the less seen and the less visible we are, right? So that begs the question, obviously, why the hell is that, right? It seems, it could be that what is ultimately needed here is a huge policy shift, right? If we just start with gender parity in terms of pay, we kind of need government to make some legislative changes, policy changes. My feeling is that we're going to be waiting a long time for that kind of shift. So to that end, given, and here's a stat as well for you. This is from hospitalitynet.org. A paltry 19% of C-level roles, and this is in the broad food sector and hospitality, are filled by women, and only 5% of firms have a female CEO. And chefs, we are CEOs, are we not, of our kitchens and our businesses, right? So to the CEOs on this call, then my question would be, the needle hasn't moved very much and despite there being hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of organizations nationwide who are committed to some kind of work in this area, what question then would you like to be answered by the end of this conversation, or touched upon in this conversation, to see if we can find an answer? And I'm going to start with Ruth Gresser, please. What question would you like answered?
Hi, Zoe. It's nice to be here, everyone. I think the question that I would this is asking me to unmute myself. Am I not unmuted? But whatever. Okay. I think the question that I would like answered is, how do we teach young girls of all across the spectrum of races and religions, et cetera? How do we teach young girls to think about themselves differently, so that when they get to be the age of potentially holding a position of a CEO, that they think they are worthy of that place in an organization, in society? And that's fundamentally, I think, the question that like having this kind of panel generally focuses on, is how did we get to where we are? And I think a lot of it has to do with how we see ourselves. And the earlier we can teach girls to see themselves in a way that they can achieve more than maybe someone else expects of them, the better chance we have to really make a change in the next 100 years. So how do we do that?
I love that question. And we're going to try and answer it. And Eva Barrios, CEC, chef, please, what would be your question that you think can help us navigate this?
I think one of the things that I have recently discovered on my own, as just for myself, is how do you coach, women to be more confident? Usually when you see an older person, you already think that it's knowledge. And when you're pretty much when you're younger, they don't take you as so serious. And even if you have the knowledge and eager to do all those things. So how do you help younger women chef? And when I say younger, like 20s, 30s, just kind of starting to hopefully become very successful, like how to gain that confidence and project it to the others and say, I know this is the beginning of a project, but I know I can do it as well as my next chef that's been in the business for, I don't know, 60 years. Does that make sense? Just, I would say age more than anything is the biggest thing that I have come across.
So there is there's a similar thread there, which is essentially instilling confidence at an early age. Mm-hmm. Kathleen Fossenberg, with so many letters, I don't have time to say them all, but you are very qualified. What would be your question?
I think the biggest question for me that needs to be answered is how do we get past having a discussion about gender? It is not about being a girl. It is about being the best that you can be at your job. And how do we get to a place where that is the discussion?
I love it. I love it, Kathleen. And Ruth didn't mention it just now, but she said exactly the same thing to me in a separate call a few days ago. So I'm seeing some threads here amongst us all. And Tia McDonald Rayford, apologies, your full name is absolutely required. What question would you like to pose to the panel?
I think in respect to that question, it's kind of twofold for me. The first is how in all the other chefs' answers that have been presented are very thoughtful. What I would say is for the next generation, how do we ensure that they are connected to the right networks that present those opportunities? Or how do we create them and create communities within women that we can stop having the conversation about women being not part of the table and not part of the conversation? How do we connect? How do we take the advice that we've been given and the lessons that we've learned and get the younger generation involved? 100 years ago, when we did get the right to vote, it was through grassroots efforts. And ultimately, and my second point of this is engaging younger generations in the voting process, not just at the national level, but at the local level. So we do have additional representation that feeds up from the local level up into the national level, that we can start making change, that we are fully represented throughout all of our communities.
I love it. I love all of these answers. They're all perfect. And JBF will be pleased to hear they're all in my strategy for the next 3 years. Okay, let's tackle confidence, young women and confidence. Now, I've just seen a remarkable group of women, right, go through the WELL program at JBF. All I would have considered leaders, right, successful entrepreneurs in their respective fields doing great things. Many of those women, it was clear, didn't have very much confidence in the fact that that's what they were. They were leaders already, like they hadn't recognized it yet, which really, really struck me as something that we need to address the next time this cohort comes around, right? So this, from the comments here, it's clear that confidence is an issue. So where does confidence come from? Is this coming, like, is it about representation and seeing yourself? Is it about having a mentor? Is it about having a community and a network? Is it about having access to learning resources? And or is it a combination of all of those things? Who would like to parry on that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think that confidence building, it starts in childhood. It starts at home. I can remember being a kid and my parents telling me, you'll be educated, you'll be self-sufficient, you won't have to rely on anybody, you can do anything that you want to do. And because of that, I believed in myself. And that is the same of any profession, of any child that's going to end up going in any direction in life. So that has to be part of it. And then when we recognize that there are young people in our industry that have an interest in our industry, whether that is through, high school culinary programs or in post-secondary culinary school, we need to get them involved. We need to show them that these paths exist, and we need to build them up. I've spent 2 decades in education, and it's amazing the transformation that can happen for somebody who has expressed an interest, who has enrolled in school, and maybe doesn't have a lot of self-confidence because they've never stepped foot in a kitchen when they're coming in the door, and yet when they graduate and they're able to go out onto that externship and get out in the real world, it's amazing the amount of talent that can be, coaxed out of them. And that's from having a support system, from having people around them to show them the path and show them the way.
If I may, I'd like to jump in and agree with Kathleen. Having a great support system is absolutely necessary. I can tell you, my personal experience was I had a great mom who encouraged me to continue cooking and pursuing my dreams. When I got into the field, I didn't see a lot of women that looked like me as chefs or in leadership positions. So the foundation that I got from cooking in high school, my community, being exposed to different experiences, gave me that confidence that regardless of the fact that I didn't have anyone that looked like me, that was my mentor, I had other mentors that said, it wasn't even about being a pioneer. It was just being a good cook and learning the principles and fundamentals that I needed to learn to continue on through my career. And as I've gotten to the age of, I've been doing this for a few years, and I see other women who look like me in culinary school, they start asking the same, how did you do it? How did you make your way when you don't see other people or women that look like you? And that foundation of knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing your skill set, but also knowing that there is a community around you that's supporting you it's critical.
Thank you both. May I come back to you? Because here's the thing, while I do agree and appreciate that obviously that kind of work should begin in the home, that's not available to everybody, right? And we as an industry don't have very much control over that. So are we saying that, should we be looking at culinary training? Should we be looking at that part where we may have some influence? Like, should there be a little bit more focus on establishing that sense of confidence and sturdiness and worthiness as part of, a more holistic approach to training and education in general? Ruth, what do you think?
Well, the thing that occurs to me first is the hierarchy of the kitchen, the brigade system that Escoffier set up, and how it was based on a military system, which, if we all really understand a military system, people are expendable. And so the individual doesn't really matter that much. And that's the basis for the restaurant industry, And so if you look fundamentally at its foundation, it's not a very holistic environment. It's not a very supportive environment. It's not an environment that's set up to develop confidence. So,
if I might add, Ruth, as well, it's a system that is very much ingrained in the patriarchy and
absolutely. Patriarchy. Absolutely. I mean, if you were going to succeed, of course, you had to be a man. And so, I mean, one of the things that you and I talked about the other day was something that I consider the feminization of the restaurant business. I mean, I've been in this business now. I got my first job when I was 16. And so we're coming close on 50 years of being in this industry. And one of my first jobs in fine dining was, split shifts 5 days a week, and then an extra shift on Saturday. And so it was your entire life. And you were a cog in an organization, and it was very limited. It wasn't, it didn't really matter how many hours you worked. You got a set salary. And so a lot of things have changed when women went into the kitchen and became leaders. So the idea of having a work-life balance, that's not a militaristic idea, So there have been some changes, but it's very slow. It's back to your original question. It's very slow. And I think, the more women are in positions of leadership and in positions where we can determine how an organization is going to be run, and if we have the attitude that things should be more collaborative and cooperative and supportive, then but then that's the catch-22. We need to be in that position. So how do we get in that position? And then how do we manifest the change?
But don't you think that is being recognized throughout the industry? I mean, I think that the changes that we've seen across the industry with the pandemic and people walking out of their jobs, across many industries, over recent months, people are seeking work-life balance, and not just women, but everyone. And so to recognize that issue amongst your employees, the entire industry needs to adapt to that. And we've seen that happening. We've seen changes in, signing bonuses. We've seen changes in pay structure. We've seen benefits being offered to line cooks that have never been part of our industry before. We've seen scheduling discussions happen amongst chefs to give people those things, to make this industry more attractive, to make it a place where people, will want to stay for a career versus, a short-lived job that may set them on a path somewhere else down the line.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Come back, Ruth, go on.
No, I agree with you. I mean, the pandemic has absolutely affected this industry. And just my experience is that some of those changes were happening before the pandemic. The pandemic has accelerated them. And these changes should be made, absolutely. Just personally, my organization had an employee health plan. I'm a 4-unit independent restaurant group. And when I put a health plan in place, I had one location, and I did that in the 1990s. We have a full package of benefits that was all there before the pandemic. The one thing that we just did in the last couple of months is we have shifted from a tip system to a service charge system, and are trying to get parity in wages between the back of the house and the front of the house. So yes, absolutely. I wish it didn't take a pandemic, and I'm just suggesting that women coming into the industry have been part of the push to move in that direction that the pandemic has accelerated.
And to agree with Kathleen and to support your response, Ruth, again, in McKinsey's report, it's like, not just anecdotally, but there is definitely a lot of evidence that would suggest women inherently provide the kind of more holistic approach to hospitality in terms of the structure of the workplaces, in terms of providing the benefits, as you've all just kind of outlined. All those changes have come, they're rooted in the fact that women are leading the way when they become their own owners and operators, right? So they're giving roadmaps for their employees to follow. So there are parts there where it's happening, like new ecosystems and new versions of the brigade system are being created, but also at what cost? Because women are doing that work. They're taking the hit potentially on their bottom lines. They're taking the hit and the risks without necessarily a wider industry jumping in full flow. So let's try and park that one for a moment, and let's come back to this idea of a genderless hospitality. When 12 years ago, when I stepped into the foray that is hospitality, there was a real obsession between A, the word cook and chef and how I described myself, and B, very much an obsession around, and there still is, the female chef, right? Does it serve women to have us categorized in that way? Does it serve or does it limit us? I think Ruth is suggesting that perhaps, or in our conversation, sorry, with Kathleen, I think you mentioned it just now. But yeah, the gender distinction, does it serve us or does it limit us when it comes to visibility, when it comes to access to finance, when it comes to all of the things that we need parity on? Who would like to respond to that question? Tia McDonald.
I think it matters. There's been, throughout the course of since the brigade system was created, and there became a standard model of hospitality, there were a number of different people and cultures and certainly women that were not included in that conversation. That, you know, it was a very monolithic society, and in that brigade system that you worked your way up. And if you were of, you know, a woman, and certainly a woman of any type of brown descent, you know, your cuisine was kind of second best. And you were, you know, you were a good house cook, you know, that was a man's world, that you had, you know, that men ran kitchens. Well, you know, women have that capability also. And we've seen more of that over the last 20, 30 years of recognition of our cultures and cuisines and food and people. So I think in the sense of making sure that we do have a seat at the table, absolutely, it's important for us to acknowledge who we are, where we're from, and what we bring from our collective perspectives. I think also in that same light and same tone, you know, there's kind of that, well, I just want to be recognized as who I am. I don't, you know, you don't always need the asterisk next to your name as far as, okay, well, she checks this button, she checks that box. That I just kind of want to be recognized as a chef and a good cook, and not even I want to be a leader. It's I want to tell my story through food and have the same platform and opportunity as anyone else would. And if anyone is inspired by that story, I'm certainly happy to share it in a little more in-depth, But we're all chefs. We all love our food. We all love what we do, and we love the community that we are in. We're just want to be recognized in the same light as anyone else.
Thank you, Chef. Gosh, we run out of time so quickly. There's so much to say, isn't there? I don't want to lose track of the mention of community and network, and this goes back again, like I see a thread through all of it, like support, education. For me, it all comes through the lens of having a community, right? And we've talked about the brigade system. We've talked about how that's steeped in patriarchy by essence of how it was formed. Now, to me, it seems like a man walks into a kitchen, he has his group, he has his community, he has his mentors, his peers, he has the people who are going to be his ride or dies for the next 20 years, right? Women walk into the same kitchen, there's probably only one or two, or maybe three compared to the 17, 18. So there isn't intrinsically the same community, the same network, the same peer-to-peer mentorship available, right? And I've already referenced the fact that we have these many hundreds of organizations nationwide doing the work, right? What do you say to the idea that, how about we speed all of this up, right? Because everyone's doing this amazing work. There's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of duplicating of work potentially. How do we bring all of these organizations together to be working on the same page so that resources can be stretched a little bit further, so that knowledge can be stretched a little bit further, so that there is inherently this sort of super network between women? Do you know what I mean? Like each organization is basically building their own table. Every one of us as a chef, right, who goes to build their own business, their own restaurant, you're creating your own table. And the way you create that table is how you're then passing on the tools potentially for your staff to create their own table, right? So we want that table to be a great model. So why don't we have one great table that is an umbrella for all of this work, so that we could all be a bit more connected and less competitive, I might argue, but all working from the same hymn sheet in the same direction? What do you think? A, do you think I'm wrong or right? Is it true what I'm saying? And B, is it a good or a bad thing to have this kind of disjointed network, perhaps from a grassroots perspective, maybe you have different perspectives on that I would love to hear.
I would like to say something.
Yes, please, Eva.
Okay, so when you're talking about organizations, and I think the ACF itself does a fantastic job of gathering all chefs of all colors and race, and people that have come from another countries, and now they can call this country their home now. And I think that's one of the things that I love ACF for, because it is not just an organization for example, Latin chefs, or it's not an organization for chefs with disabilities. It's an organization for all chefs. Doesn't matter if you're a chef of a restaurant, a hotel, country club, you have your own business. It doesn't matter. What we have in common is we enjoy the culinary arts. We love that profession. We enjoy it in different ways, and all the ramifications of being a chef are valid. So and it's great. So the organization does exist. One thing that I want to say really quickly about the support coming from when you're little with your family, there is also the support, your work family. It's so important. I think mentors are so important. So I always recommend to find 2 or 3 or even more for those people to be there with you, next to you, to support you. And confidence comes also, people cheering you up, as well as, you have to be strong and know yourself that you can do it, and just keep pushing. Another thing that I think that will be very, very helpful is have more women support, even through the ACF, that women can connect some more, so they can know each other, they can change ideas, and perhaps that will help them to feel like they're not alone. So I think that will also be very helpful for the young culinarians that they're going to become successful chefs in the future.
Are ACF paying you? Just kidding. I think we have about 2 minutes before I think we've got to go to Q&A, and Catherine will take over that part of the session. But would anyone like to just comment on Eva's reply or what I mentioned earlier? No, everyone's quiet. Nobody liked that question. Okay, well, in response to what
I'll say something, Zoe, which is definitely, I think that working together is really important, and I think one of the things that's come out of the pandemic for me is a connection with colleagues in a different way. Like the competition part sort of was minimized because we all had this collective goal of kind of just making it through. And so some of that is definitely reflected in what you're saying. We're all on the same page. Even if our missions don't align completely, is there a way that we can work together more effectively? And the one thing that I want to add to that is the idea of bringing men into this, into the fold of, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change, but change would be a lot faster if the 17 men in that kitchen could stop seeing the 3 women as different. And so if there's a way that collectively our groups of women could help to make that happen, it would be a very positive, we'd have a positive effect.
I love it. I love all of it. I wish we could talk about this just for days, but we can't. Thank you very, very much. Kathleen, am I right on the timing here? I think it's time to hand over. Is that right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, good. So thank you very much to everybody on the panel: Ruth Gresser, Tia McDonald-Rayford, Kathleen Fossenberg, apologies, not Vosenberg, and Eva Barrios, CEC. And what I will say to Eva, who's gave a beautiful evocation of why everybody should be part of the ACF, is that I had a lot of conversation with Jackie recently, and we are going to work together on creating some more inclusive program models for women as well. So anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to moderate that, and I'm handing over now to Kathleen Fossenberg for the Q&A. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. This was awesome. We do have several questions that have come in from the audience, both before the session started as well as during the session. So there are some overlap in some of those, so I'll try to summarize it and get everybody to jump in here. The first one that I think is really important, pretty simple question. Does gender really affect your job on a daily basis? What does everybody think?
Right now, no, I don't think it ever. I only had, thankfully, and I think that I'm very lucky to say that, but I think there was only one incident or one moment that I felt that because I was a woman and I was a young woman, I was not taken seriously. There was only one time in my entire life that I felt that way. The rest of the times in the places that I worked, I felt like I was part of the team and I was not, seen as a woman or, oh, you're not stronger. I was just another cook, another chef with them. And I competed with them and it was great. It was a good feeling. And whenever I had that experience of, I'm not the common, older male in a kitchen, and I was not running the kitchen in a way where I was just screaming and saying bad words to people, because that's just not how I do it. And people were not used to that. So that was kind of a little wall that I had to hit. And then that's when COVID hit. That's when I decided, you know what? I love cooking and I haven't cooked in a while. And I'm a chef and I haven't cooked. So I want to cook. I want to cook amazing meals whenever I want. I want to see my son more often. And that's why I have my own business now. And I love it. And I'm so happy. So.
Awesome. Zoe, you had your hands up?
Sorry, I was furiously typing my question into the chat. I just wanted to say that gender is a silent bias, right? Because for most of my career, when asked that question, I always said, no, it hasn't affected me. I'm a 6 foot tall Black lesbian. Nobody fucks around with me. I'm owning and operating my own business. So I was probably mostly out of the context where on a daily basis, I would be feeling the impact of gender bias or gender discrimination. However, having said that, I've been around over that time, I've overheard other male chefs or male chefs have spoken to me in kitchens outside of my own in a way that definitely has intrinsic bias and prejudice in it. But in my world of work, yes, no. But as soon as I step out of my world, it's everywhere. That's all I wanted to say, is that it's a silent kind of bias, whether we're realizing it or not.
Okay, thank you for that. Tia, you had also your hand up.
Yeah, I would say I never let it bother me. It was not in the philosophy I always had was it's their loss. It's their loss that they are able to determine my character and my skill set and my ability to be a good cook based upon things that I can't control. Right? I was born this way. I'm going to die this way. There's nothing I can do outside of that other than be a good person and hone my craft. So feeling like, and I've had doors shut in my face, and, you know, wasn't allowed to stage certain, you know, because I didn't fit a particular mold, but it always came back to me as that's their loss. It's not going to stop me from being a good person, a good collaborator, a good cook, a good business owner, because someone else is short-sighted. So has it been there? Has the silent bias? Have I heard the comments? You know, absolutely. But it was never really a deterrent for me to ever think that I couldn't do something because of someone else's short-sightedness.
Great. Ruth, how about you?
Yeah, what occurs to me from listening to everyone is, you know, gender is relevant in this industry because to a certain extent, each person has discussed their, you know, the run-ins that they've had. And the way that I speak about this is women chefs are often asked, is it harder for women chefs to succeed in this business? And the answer almost exclusively is, it's hard for everyone. And it's sort of a diversion, and it's a diversion that we've come to understand is necessary in order for us to succeed. We need to see ourselves as just as competent and relevant as men. But does the industry see it that way? I think the answer is more in the statistics that were announced at the beginning of this session. And the reality is women leave this business more than men do, and women don't get to the top levels of leadership in the way that men do. And so all of that to me suggests that not only anecdotally do each of us need deal with it in some way in our career, but the industry as a whole deals with it very significantly.
And that's a great segue into the next question, which I think is a very interesting one. This person wrote in and said, as a male chef, what can I do to change my kitchen's culture and support more diversity in my own kitchen? So what do we think we need to ask of our male counterparts, both at the chef level, at the corporate level, for larger organizations that may, you know, have multiple layers of leadership that are far removed from the day-to-day kitchen life, as well as those in the day-to-day kitchen life? Zoe?
Yes, sorry. I mean, there's so many things, isn't there? But like a great starting place would be to, like, who in your network is a female chef owner? And maybe you want to go and connect with that person and see how they're running their kitchen. And, you know, is it too much to expect male chefs to do stages in women's kitchens, not for the culinary expertise, but for the culture? You know, maybe that's what we need to start doing, is cultural stages. It's like, how do you, because you don't, you know, you can't practice what you don't know, right? So understandably, if men have been doing the brigade system the way they've been taught by other men, then they're not going to have the tools. So, and, you know, the evidence suggests that women inherently have a bit more of a holistic approach. So would be the best teachers there, I would have thought. And of course, joining conversations like this and then sharing what you hear from conversations like this and encouraging your male counterparts to join conversations and forums and panels like this and to participate in the conversation, because also, you know, the needle, as Ruth pointed out just now, moves so slowly because men still see us as less than or different to en masse, not every single man, but we actually need the support of men in this industry to move this dial faster, quicker. as well as needing the support of every other woman in the industry. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone
So,
else?
yeah, I'll just add to that. There are a few things that you can, do within your kitchens immediately, and that is, set rules that don't allow disparaging women if you have women in your kitchen and men in your kitchen. There's also the notion that you might need to look a little harder at women candidates for jobs and the women who do work in your kitchen, so that you can make sure that they are seen, because they may not be seen over men, and just looking a little bit harder and finding candidates to promote. That one of the things that they say about women is our women are very shy about asking for promotions. So look harder, don't wait for the woman to come to you to ask for a raise or a promotion. See if you have a capable candidate in front of you that you can support in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, and that goes a long way to the discussions around pay differences and so forth. Is the cultural expectation, I think, of a lot of women is that they don't push back, and that they, take what is offered to them without exception. I've never once in my career accepted a position for what it was offered to me at. Right? I've negotiated everything, whether that's the salary, whether that's benefits, job title, whatever was important to me at that juncture in my career. And that's one of the things I think women in general can probably do better at to, try to close that gap a little bit more. To that end, to Ruth's point about setting rules within the kitchen, to correct the offending behaviors or encourage the behaviors that we want. What would you say to a woman who is feeling that she's being harassed, and what should be her action plan on a day-to-day basis for dealing with that? Tia, you want to jump in?
Absolutely. I think it's important for, if someone is feeling uncomfortable in any situation, that they need to speak up for themselves. And as just previously mentioned, it's very difficult sometimes for women to speak up for themselves. Finding a close colleague, a friend, someone that you feel comfortable enough to speak up to, and also to the individual who is making them feel comfortable. I mean, it may be connecting with someone that'll help bring out that confidence in a person, to make sure that they know that they're entitled to have a safe space and feel comfortable no matter where they are. That it is unprofessional, it is unbecoming, and it is it creates an energy in a work environment that just does not allow people to shine. So finding someone that you're comfortable with to have those conversations with, and that goes back to the community and the network that we build around each other. Finding like people and people who support you in your journey will help individuals with getting through those experiences.
Fantastic. We just have time for one more question left, as our time is quickly coming to a close. So I will leave you with this, coming from my education background. I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of our students in the pastry programs tend to be women, and it is just about 50-50 in culinary. So when we look at what's going out into the industry in total, the shift is towards women entering this industry out of culinary school. So my question is, how do we keep them in the industry? What are you going to do each day to keep women in this industry? Eva?
You just have to you have to promote them and encourage them, and just show that you're proud, and for sure going to school, talking to them, inspiring them that everything is possible, and whatever they want to do, they can do it. And if they need, of course everyone is going to need help, and the good thing about it is that there's so many chefs that there is a good group, male and female, that are willing to help these young ladies to be successful in the future. Absolutely.
Zoe, we've got a couple quick seconds for a response.
Continuing professional development, ongoing education, making everybody in culinary school realize that everybody to their left and their right is a potential mentor for the rest of their life, not just somebody they're doing a course with. So just instilling a sense of connection, mentorship, pride, and confidence.
Love it.
Is that fast enough?
Okay, we did not get to everyone's question, so I do apologize for that. Time's running out, but thank you, and I encourage everybody to keep this conversation going. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jackie.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, truly informative and eye-opening conversation. I think it shows the work ahead that needs to be done. The conversations need to continue as often as possible. And of course, we will continue the conversation as well. I'd love to go around just really quickly, maybe 10, 15 seconds to each of the panelists. If you could just give us your final thoughts or what you'd like to leave the viewers with today. And let's start off, Chef Kathleen, you're on my screen. So if you wouldn't mind, some final thoughts.
Sure. I would say my final thoughts are, be so great that they can't ignore you.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. All right. And then we will go on to Chef Tia, please. Chef Tia, did you have any final thoughts you'd like to?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Just keep pushing forward. Continue with building the community around you, which includes the American Culinary Federation. We're stronger together. I know that's you hear that a lot, but it is absolutely true. And find your channel, find what it is that you are comfortable with in your passion, and that will flourish you.
Wonderful. And thank you so much for being here. And Chef Zoe, your final thoughts.
I would say everybody stay true to yourself, stay authentic to who you are and what you want to do, and grow in confidence in that, and build community around that, and build community around like-minded people all the way up, because that's how you survive. Honestly, you survive in good company with people who make you think, who inspire you, and who can answer questions when you need a shoulder to cry on.
Thank you. Very, very wise. And Chef Ava?
I would say network, meet many chefs. I think that like-minded people is important, but also disagreeing and learning other people's points of view are also very important. So I think that just go out there, network, whether it's the ACF or going to an event, a local event, just keep pushing and just, you can learn something new every day, and that will lead you to what kind of chef you want to be in the future.
Perfect. Thank you. And Chef Gresser, your final thoughts for the presentation.
The thing that comes to mind right now is the bit of advice that I was given in negotiating, because I think that that's really important. Getting through life is everything. You need to ask for what you need, or if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. So keep asking, keep pushing, and don't hear no unless someone says no. That's another thing that I've heard women do a lot is they expect no to be the answer. So they hear no before it's said, and it limits what's possible. So remember, anything is possible. Ask for it and hear yes.
Awesome. I love it. And what a great note to go out on. Again, chefs, thank you all for being here, and a huge virtual round of applause as we thank our esteemed panelists. We thank you so much for taking the time to share your candid insights, your encouragement, the time that you have invested today will touch many lives within the community of chefs and students who are tuning in today and who will watch the recording. So thank you all very much. And based on today's conversation, there's a lot to do. This is just the beginning, and conversations surrounding women in food service must continue. Please know that we support you. We are committed to continuing to provide education and resources, and have this as an ongoing topic of discussion to find ways that we can help support every woman in our industry. So to everyone, let's make it a point to uplift and support each other as often and as fully as we possibly can. To those of you viewing in, please be on the lookout for a survey that you'll receive tomorrow, which you'll need to fill out to earn 1 hour of ACF CEH. You'll also, in that email, receive the recording. Please share it with your friends and colleagues. And we hope that you'll tune in for our next webinar, which will be March 28th, as we explore techniques of plant-forward cuisine with Chef David Bruno, live from the Culinary Institute of America in New York. And don't miss the opportunity to join us. Actually, if you're in for a quick trip or you're in Florida, we will be having a one-day advanced culinary workshop on March 10th in Orlando. And we will have our advanced pastry summit coming on May 14th in Dallas. You don't want to miss the amazing opportunity. I've talked about culinary before, so just into pastry, Chef Francisco Magoyo, Chef Susan Notter, Chef Lashita Perry, Chef Lisa Kirshner, and more high-level, top-notch pastry demonstrations if that's your specialty. And of course, join us at ACF National Convention, which will be a great homecoming, July 25th to the 28th in Las Vegas. We have a great lineup of speakers that you don't want to miss. So please visit acfchefs.org for more information. And we hope that you've enjoyed the discussion today. We'll continue it. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, chefs.